Hello and welcome to
Okay.
SaharaTV interview. In this edition, we hope to answer some of your questions on how best to cope mentally with the effects of the coronavirus pandemic. Joining me is Dr. Adeoye Oyewole, a mental health expert and a psychiatrist. It's a pleasure having you on SaharaTV, sir.
Oh, it's my pleasure, sir. Good afternoon.
Now, this spread of the coronavirus is making people around the world, especially in Nigeria, a little bit anxious. So, first of all, if I may ask you, sir, is feeling anxious at this time normal?
Yes, of course, it's normal because of the nature of that illness itself. Because of the nature of the illness itself, medical experts don't exactly know how the illness, kills people. There are a lot of conspiracy theories. There are a lot of theories about even there's no definitive drug to treating this illness. So when something like that happens, of course, to be fearful is a normal response. And I think that's why a lot of people are anxious.
So what are your top tips now for dealing with this anxiety, sir?
Yeah, because if you look at the Nigerian situation, for instance, the pattern of manifestations of this illness, in my opinion and in my observation, is not as fatal as we have in Europe. That's why you can see somebody sit down in his office and said on Twitter, "I'm positive, I hope to be back the next 2 weeks." It means it is not as fatal as it is abroad from the statistics we are getting. Number two, those who have come down in terms of statistics compared to those who have had shows that those who have come down with who have died as a result of this illness have complications, So what we need to do to observe all the precautions that they have given unto us, and also to banish fear. We make a lot of people do a lot of overdose of certain drugs that are rumored to be effective. People will not go for testing because of the fear. Because of the fear, there's going to be other psychiatric problems that will come because there's going to be strains in our relationship with others. Marital relationship is going to be frustrated. Family relationship is going to be affected. Some people are actually going to die out of the fear in itself, apart from the virus. Of course, the pandemic itself also has its own economic realities that it has imposed on our lives. So when you sum up all the fears together, it is actually the fear of what COVID-19 is or its effect that is going to actually kill people.
Thank you very much for helping us understand those behavioral changes and the fears that we are saying already. One question that we also want to find out is what will be the status of patients with previous mental health issues and how can they get through this?
Yeah, thank you so much. That's a very important thing because even for some of us who were not mentally ill premorbidly before COVID-19 came, we are already affected. A lot of people are already having a lot of phobic anxiety disorders that is already affecting their lives. We cannot imagine those who have been ill before this pandemic. It will just be a stressor that will lead to a lot of relapse. Sadly so, because of the COVID-19 fear, the mental health services are also being affected, just like for every other sickness. Everybody is now interested on COVID-19. And so the emphasis has been shifted away from people who have been ill before this pandemic. So for those who have been ill before now, by the time the lockdown is lifted, we're going to have a lot of relapse. A lot of our payment patients are going to come up with relapse and may need to be, admitted. So certainly that's going to lead to a lot of increase in relapse of previous patients And of course, more people are actually going to have more mental health problems as a result of the pandemic.
All right, sir. Earlier on, you also mentioned, you talked about abuse of substances. How will people who indulge in substance abuse cope? And could you also suggest ways to handle such emotional problems at this time?
Yeah, more people are going to start abusing drugs because you just need to know that one of your friends that you were together sometimes tested positive to COVID, and then the fear begins. And so a lot of people would be trying to medicalize their fears. And by medicalizing their fears, we're saying that they will be taking a lot more alcohol. Some people will be taking more marijuana to cope with, the fear that the pandemic has brought. My professional advice is that people should seek help. If you feel you have symptoms that is suggestive of COVID-19, there's no need trying to run away. It is not a death sentence. Submit yourself to authentic tests. Let doctors determine what is wrong with you. Number two, follow their instructions. After you test positive, if you do, rest at home. Some certain drugs they give you, try and take it. Don't patronize people who are just peddling drugs that may inevitably kill people rather than the ones the doctors give to you. And then number three, maintain solid confidence in God, whoever you put him to be, whether you're a Christian, you're a Muslim, or you're a traditional healer, because the state of the mind has to do with immunity. When there's a lot of fear and depression, immunity goes down. So those three states are very important. And then keep a positive outlook, rest, sleep well, eat, and all of that. So for me, for those who have not even gotten it, it's also good for us to keep a good spirit. Let's keep hope alive. Let's believe that God will not allow it to come to us, but it's not a death sentence, even for anybody that has it.
Thank you very much. I also wanted to find out how this is affecting, how you think this is affecting those providing essential services. For example, those who are in the front line in the health sector, the security and administrative sectors. How can their families and friends provide support at this time, during this period?
Yeah, there's a lot of stress on those who are in the front line, because like anybody who is positive, they're also stigmatized. We have had records of more strained marital relationship as a result. Even in developed countries like America, we have seen wives and children pack out the house when the man is coming from the hospital or somewhere. Some smartly will relocate their wives and their children to other places while they will remain alone where they are staying. So a good number of them are also depressed. A good number of them who have tested positive may be regretting, why did I need to put my life on the line? A lot of them are also having burnout. They have to walk around the clock. And of course, having to, face up to a strained relationship as a result of intervention. You can imagine the trauma. But I think that healing will come as more light is shed on this illness. People get to understand it. And then, of course, as people also observe certain precautionary measures. There will be need for a lot of counseling, a lot of counseling intervention for people who are worried, who are fearful. Some people may need to go through marital therapy, family therapy. For people who have been tested, join them, even when they say they are now negative, there may be a lot of stigma. People will not want to sit close to them. Their children may not want to sit close to them. Their wives may not want to sit close to them. So these are the issues we're going to be dealing with in the months to come as a result of post-COVID infection, and then, of course, trying to reintegrate back to the society.
Now, the issue of stigmatization has actually come to the fore, especially from survivors of the infection itself. And there has been complained that they are being stigmatized. I mean, how do they help them to deal with such stigmatization, sir?
Yes, like for every stigmatization, knowledge is important. Those who are survivors of COVID-19 may need to step out and speak to us. Let them tell us from their experience. Let them tell us that it is not a death sentence. Let them show us that how they have reintegrated back with their wives and children, and that their wives and children have not tested positive. Let them tell us that the fact that COVID-19 positive does not mean that you should be neglected and run away. So we need a lot of intelligent sensitization and campaign, especially by survivors, those who were positive and have become negative.
I wouldn't want to discourage anyone from watching SaharaTV and get to, listen to news. But do you think that the people should also limit how much news they watch and listen to at this moment?
Oh, very important. Because there's a lot of junks flying in our media, social media, all forms of media, and people are just pushing it out. But what you are doing is very constructive. You're talking to me as an expert. Your questions are very helpful, but not all media seek their pieces of information from expert advice. There are a lot of junks all over the place. People need information, whether we like it or not. But people just need to be a little more selective and then look for media outlets that are authentic, media outlets that speak to experts, rather than gossips, beer parlor gossips, or some people who are just postulating theories that don't exist. So people need to be careful about the amount of information they are getting and the source, and who is it that is speaking to them. So I think it's a very good advice, because the more negative information you have, the more fears you have.
Finally, sir, could you suggest ways, especially for Nigerians, on how to handle social isolation and emotional problems arising from this coronavirus pandemic?
Yeah, we are going to get around it. Africans and Nigerians, we are socially active people by nature. But of course, the pandemic has introduced something that is a little strange into our culture, which is social isolation and social distancing. We need to be a little more intelligent on how we are going to reintegrate. We may need to be a little more sensitive to the awareness of and reality of COVID-19 and see how we're going to get by. But testing is one very crucial factor. And that's why we speak to the government to ensure that we have more people tested. Where there is suspicion, what banishes suspicion is true knowledge, isn't it? So when we have people tested and people are suspecting and they are tested, it will enhance our social reintegration. And and as people begin to find premise to interact, what will happen is that the phobias, the distancing that has occurred before will generally and gradually collapse. But it is good that we do reintegration from it.
Dr. Adeoye Oyewole, we really appreciate your insightful analysis, and thank you very much indeed for your time and for all your tips and suggestions.
It's my pleasure, sir.